Some controversy as of late relating to airplanes. Why? Well, we saw a door plug blow off the side of a plane. Fortunately, nobody was sitting there, but if they were, they could have been sucked into oblivion, where they would fall into their deaths. I'm assuming. I mean, I don't know. Someone's going to argue, no, actually, the seatbelt, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the side of a door of a Boeing Max blew off. We now got another story that the wheel fell off a plane the other day. There have been a couple crashes. And a lot of people are concerned about what's going on with these planes and why it's happening. Many people have pointed out, as well as I, diversity, inclusivity, and equity programs will result in lesser qualified people being given jobs. And this will create a tendency towards error. I'm going to break all that down for you, but the core of the story right now is the smears and the lies the left is pushing about Charlie Kirk by pulling a clip out of context, and this is the game they play. Now, I know politics is a dirty game. I get it. And they're going to play these games. The reason I do this segment is one, Charlie Kirk's a good dude and he's not a racist. And they're playing this game to trick you into not understanding the concerns about diversity, inclusivity, and equity programs in airlines and engineering and just about anything that requires serious safety regulations. Charlie Kirk, this is Midas Touch. Oh, we love our friends over at Midas Touch, right? Quote, "If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified." And what was Charlie Kirk's point? Taken out of context, they're trying to imply that Charlie is basing his views on whether or not someone can fly a plane on race. When in fact, the actual context was, if an airline tells you they will hire lesser qualified people based on race, you would be concerned if you saw someone who was not white, that they may have hired the lesser qualified person. Thus, Charlie's point is racist hiring policies make people concerned there are lesser qualified people flying planes based on race. The criticism is of racism. This is what really bothers me. Because in fact, you have Charlie making the argument that companies should not be able to be racist. I mean, this is the crux of the argument. It should not be that companies take race into consideration when hiring. You should just hire the best person. Otherwise, you're racist. And then if you are hiring people and you're explicitly saying it's not about who's the best person, but the race, then you're going to be concerned they did not choose the best person. It's that simple, reasonable, and opposing of racist policies. Take a look at this clip, and then I want to highlight the Krasensteins, liberal commentators on X, and explain how this game is played and what it results in. They say fresh off his attack on Martin Luther King, Charlie took to attacking black surgeons and pilots on his Thought Crime show. Kirk said that seeing a black pilot makes him doubt the pilot is qualified. Actually, that is a misrepresentation. What Kirk is saying is that seeing a diversity, inclusivity, and equity program hire people based on race makes him concerned they're not the meritocratically chosen candidate. That's not who I am. That's not what I believe, he says. Now, hold on there a minute. Why wasn't that in the headline? Why don't these leftists include in the headline that Charlie Kirk is saying, I'm not like that. That's not who I am. I don't want to be thinking these things. But the racist hiring practices bring that to front of mind, top of mind, right? Let me show you this from Ed Krasenstein. For those that aren't familiar, Ed Krasenstein is one of the most prominent political commentators on X, formerly Twitter, where he and his brother are well known for their liberal commentary. We've actually had them on Timcast IRL. His post about Charlie Kirk has 2.6 million views. The man himself has 1 million followers. He says, Charlie Kirk, quote, "I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified." He then says, Charlie Kirk is racist. Is there any other word for this? If that's not racism, then what is? This is the dirty, dirty game they play. Now, I responded. I said, these guys act stupid in order to bait the right and generate ratios because they get paid more money. Ed knows exactly what Charlie is saying, that racist hiring policies give him pause, not that he thinks race plays a factor in skill. It's actually that simple. If a company is engaged in a racist hiring policy, I have concerns about the qualities of the people who are engaged in these jobs. I don't care what their race is. If someone said, we're going to hire based on height instead of skill, and I walk in and I see a 6'7" guy flying the plane, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. There's no difference. I'm not heightist. I'm making the point that the company says they're not hiring based on whether they can fly the plane. Okay. So Ed Krasnostein responds to me. He says, Tim, I literally made $450 last pay period. My posts have nothing to do with money. I do know what Charlie is saying. Do you honestly think that unqualified pilots are being hired just because they are black? That's absurd. An airline pilot must pass a written exam, a practical flying test, and a medical exam. She must have an instrument rating, a commercial pilot's license, which require another written and practical exam, and also receive a multi-engine rating. Additionally, they must have regular check rides and ongoing proficiency tests, as well as a certain number of flight hours. Yeah, I want to say this, a little bit of a humble brag. The reason why people follow me, one of them, is because I'm not a moron, and I don't fall for these tricks. I'm going to pause for a second. I saw a debate between Alex Jones and Destiny, and I just couldn't. Ian Crossland was trying to moderate, and boy, the reason why I don't care for things like that is you're not going to bait me because I'm not stupid, Ed. I did not make a point about the qualifications of these pilots and their rating systems or otherwise. I made the point that you knew exactly what Charlie Kirk's point was, and you're doing this to generate engagement, which makes you money. Your response to me is an attempt to divert the argument into whether or not I believe unqualified pilots are being hired. I did not make that argument. This is what these people do, okay? This is what you see in these political debates. It's lowbrow, C-, D tier, whatever you want to call it. And this is how they manipulate people. Instead of addressing my point, about Charlie, Ed deflects into the core of whether or not unqualified people are being hired, where in fact, my point was he is grifting and he knows what Charlie is saying, to which he admits. He says, I do know what Charlie is saying. Then why call Charlie Kirk a racist? Additionally, he says, I made literally $450 last pay period. I do believe, good sir, you have proven my point. Your revenue is down. I remember when the Krasnosteins were bragging about making 5 figures. We got $20,000 or whatever it was. You made a lot of money. Now only $450. You better crank those numbers up, buddy. You're going to have to figure out a way to get people to respond to your comments by, I don't know, perhaps calling Charlie Kirk a racist despite knowing his point was to criticize racism. You see, NPCs, man, there are people who are what I would refer to as default liberal, who believe people like Ed and believe Charlie Kirk is a racist without seeing the full context of the argument and engaging with Charlie Kirk honestly in the full context of what he believes. To which Charlie Kirk would say, I don't believe the race of the individual will determine their capabilities in flying a plane. I believe that these airlines are prioritizing race over skill, which could lead to a pilot of lesser skill being given the job. Oh boy, I hope he's qualified. The funny thing is I made a very similar point. Because of these racist hiring policies, you now are not sure was the best pilot hired. My response to Ed was, your response confirms my post was correct. You know that Charlie meant he feels racist hiring practices result in lesser qualified or unqualified candidates. You called him a racist. It was bait to get clicks. Considering your payout was low, it also lends itself to the idea that you're desperately trying to boost your revenue. Well, fresh off the bat, 1 minute ago, as of recording this, Ed has responded. He says, no, it is racist for someone to say they believe a black man could be unqualified to fly the plane when you clearly know that there are standards and testing in place to ensure that she is in fact qualified. Tim, I have no need to make a living off of X. I posted for over 10 years without earning a dime and will continue to post my thoughts and feelings regardless of how much X pays me. I will concede that point. I don't know that I feel that Ed and his brother want to drive traffic and generate revenue because there's literally no reason to say that Charlie's a racist in this regard. It's fake. It's not real. It doesn't address any actual arguments. It doesn't make any actual claims at the character of Charlie Kirk or anyone who works with him. It is a blanket nonsense statement which conveys no idea whatsoever. I suppose if Ed Krasenstein wanted to say something like, it shows a racial prejudice, or the statement made by Charlie Kirk could be perceived as racist by some people. No, he says, Charlie Kirk is a racist. What does that do? Nothing. That's why you're a grifter, Ed. Because you're not making a real argument about what Charlie Kirk has argued. You see, this is what I hate about politics. Charlie makes a point on the merits. You attack him on character. And that's it. And then, instead of responding to me, you try to divert to an argument about qualifications. Because there's no merit here. These are, Ed was part of the debate with Jones and Destiny. It was the Krasensteins, I believe it was both of them, and Destiny, with Alex Jones and Darren Beattie, Glenn Greenwald. And you know why I couldn't do it? And why I don't like doing these things? When Destiny comes on the show, Destiny's a very liberal guy, and we have our arguments. We have real arguments. And I think Destiny's fantastic. A lot of people don't like him, but he's a smart guy. He believes his points. After we finish the show, we're playing poker, and we're arguing, and he's a genuine guy. He's allowed to believe what he believes, and I respect that he believes these things based off of what he reads, and I will argue with him. But you see, the debates I have with Destiny don't devolve into, no, you, no, you, no, you, no, you. That literally happened. And I'll tell you why. My point. Charlie Kirk is not a racist. Charlie Kirk is concerned that these companies are racist, and they're perpetuating racism and prejudices by engaging in these practices. Charlie Kirk, instead of arguing the point, calls him a racist, which does nothing. It's just riling people up on the internet for no reason other than to generate engagement. Now, he may not make direct money from X, nor he says, I don't need to make money off X. Yeah. Building profile and making these claims still makes you money in other ways. It's a part of your brand and business. I'm not stupid enough to get roped into a fake debate that I didn't make. My argument, Charlie's not a racist. You're misrepresenting the facts. Ed's debate, do you really think Pilot's unqualified? Oh, spare me, dude. But let me stress, I will absolutely jump in to that argument. Now that I've addressed the Charlie Kirk portion of this, Charlie's a good dude. Ed is misrepresenting his points. That being said, an airline pilot must pass a written exam. Okay, what's the scoring method on that exam? We'll break down one by one. Is it 0 out of 100, the exam? What's the passing threshold? Is it anyone who scores 75% and above passes? Or is it you must score 100%? Honest question. If it is that you must score 100%, I concede that point. If the argument is that an airline pilot must pass a written exam, and the written exam has a threshold of between 80 to 100 for a passing grade, that is to say, if you score an 80, you advance, the argument then becomes, two men take the test. One man who's white scores a 93. A man who is black scores an 87. They say, diversity means we need more non-white pilots. He got a passing grade. We will hire him. Congratulations. He got a passing grade, but it was lesser than the white man. I'm not saying that's absolute. I'm saying that's what the airline is presenting to the public. And the problem is, it is very likely, in my opinion, the inverse would occur, where a white man scores poorly and a black man scores masterfully, earns his position through merit, and then they say, can we take a picture of you for our brochure to make sure everybody knows how diverse we are? And then you'll end up with individuals saying, is this guy really being chosen based on his merit? Or are they just doing some diversity parade? And it's insulting to people who are white. Next, a practical flying test. I make the same argument. What does this entail? Is there a threshold? Is it 100 marks? You must get 90 correct out of 100 or pass 90 maneuvers or whatever it may be. A medical exam. Again, this is the same argument. What is a medical exam? Could they say your eyes are good, your eyes are not so good? And would they be willing to accept a candidate who is lesser on the medical exam, but passing? That's the point. He, she must have an instrument rating. What rating? Out of what? What's the number? Is it out of 10? Is it anyone with an instrument rating of 8 or higher passes? Again, same point. commercial pilot's license, which requires another written and practical exam. I'll just totally just drop the pilot's license one. Absolutely got to have a pilot's license. And if you pass, you pass. Multi-engine rating. Additionally, they must have regular check rides and ongoing proficiency tests, as well as a certain number of flight hours. Now let's do some math to break down for you the concerns people have on anti-meritocratic hiring practices. Oh, it's, oh boy, so simple. Let me explain to you using the casino analogy, which I love using. Blackjack. Oh, if you play blackjack perfectly, the casino has a 0.5% edge. That means for every 100 hands, the casino will win 50.5 of those hands, and you will win 49.5. We can crank it up to 1,000 and say they'll win 505, and you'll win 495. I mean, it feels an awful lot like 50-50, doesn't it? As a marginal 0.5%. Am I really going to notice that? In gambling, people refer to this as expected value minus. It's really simple. If you were to play at those odds infinitely, you will lose. There's no question about it. Over a long enough period of time, you lose no matter what. In fact, there are simulators that can show you this. You'll start with an amount of money you want to make a bet. You'll start with the amount of bankroll you have, and you'll press generate. And so long as you keep playing, eventually it will stop and you will have $0. That's it. You can go on for a long time, depending on your threshold. Let's say you put in the simulator, $25 bet with a $500 bankroll, how much money you have on you, and press go. It could be gone instantly. It could be lose, and then it's just like all your money's gone. The point is, however, after 1 million hands or whatever the number is, you are losing 0.5% every time you play. Now let's talk about how this operates in the hiring practices. If we shave off 2% efficiency for diversity, this will mean over the long run, you will get more errors. Now, Ed, you may be listening. I'd like to explain to you the scaling problem. This is something I talk about quite a bit. Phone company releases 100 phones. They're brand new, state-of-the-art. They release them to 100 celebrities. And they say, celebrities, please go out and brag about our new phones. Unfortunately for phone company, 1% of these phones fail. So what? So one phone broke. The guy comes out, goes on TV and says, you know, I got one of these phones too, and mine broke. And they're going to be like, well, how'd you break it? I don't know, it just stopped working. Well, I'll get you a new one. End of story. One celebrity has one broken phone and ain't nobody cares. The company then releases the phone to the public and they sell 1 million phones. Uh-oh. 1 million phones with a 1% fail rate. I'll tell you what happens. 10,000 broken phones. 10,000 broken phones. And guess what? Despite the fact that it has the same margin of failure, the internet is flooded with 10,000 stories of people saying, my phone broke instantly. Top, front page, bang, news. What is going on with these broken phones? People are saying, I can't open up Instagram or TikTok without seeing a story about one of these broken phones. Don't buy them. Same margin of error. You get the point. As the pool becomes larger, the threshold by which the system can tolerate failure decreases. This is the scaling problem. When you are dealing with a single flight, it probably does not matter if the guy scored a 97 or a 96 on his exam. However, the scaling problem matters. We are now seeing this reflected in the airline industry with loose bolts on planes, wheels popping off, and it could be completely unrelated to diversity, inclusivity, and equity. The question is being brought up simply because it is an explicit statement of anti-meritocratic hiring practices, and thus the scaling problem will prevail. That is to say, if you hire 100 pilots and you use race as a criteria, meaning some of them are less qualified, and there is one error in which, like, the wheel pops off a plane, people are going to go, wow, I wonder what happened. That's it. If you hire 10,000 and you end up with 100 instances of wheels popping off, doors exploding, planes having hard landings. And let's not even talk about this. A lot of people don't know. There was recently a plane that landed wrong and it broke the fuselage. That was pilot error, presumably. It appears to be pilot error. The pilot came down too hard and bounced the nose off the ground. If you end up with 100 stories of failure, the same margin of failure, the same drop in efficiency, people start freaking out. I am not saying, with that argument, right or wrong. I will say the stock of these airlines will go down, people will panic, and they will likely reverse course policy-wise. Because if 100 stories came out in the past year about planes crashing and engines failing, people stop flying. So, you want to make sure you maximize meritocracy. You only hire the best of the best of the best to reduce the potential scaling problem and failure rates of your airlines and flights. So as Ed asks, do I honestly think unqualified pilots are being hired? No, of course not. That's absurd. I agree. I do believe lesser qualified pilots are being hired. Why? Because they told us they're doing it. Ed, I'm not speculating. They have on their website that they do this. Okay. The point stands. At the end of this, the only thing that needs to be said is, this is the game the liberal pundits play. They did not actually address Charlie Kirk's concerns. Ed, you just called him a racist. It's the most lowbrow, grifter-esque, stupid thing you can say when someone makes an argument on policy and statistics. Have fun in your grifter world. Next segment is coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.